After a pair of big games, just what is Travis Etienne worth in a Dynasty League? All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Dynasty.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Matt Williamson and Ryan McDowell.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Dynasty is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Welcome to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan McDowell. You can follow me on Twitter at RyanMC23. Joining me, as always, is Matt Williamson. Find Matt on Twitter at WilliamsonNFL. Matt, have you calmed down? Have you caught your breath from yesterday's wild afternoon, or I guess a couple days ago? We're really messed up now.
Yeah, it was so wild we skipped one. I mean, there's a lot to digest. That was a frenzy at the trade deadline. A lot of fun. My hometown team is involved like that quite a bit. And let's just dig in, man. Enough of the pleasantries.
Yeah, you said we missed one. You were right, and we missed a pretty big one. I don't know. It happened so much earlier in the day than some of the others, but I do want to get your thoughts on the trade of TJ Hockenson from the Detroit Lions to the Minnesota Vikings. We had heard earlier in the week that Irv Smith had suffered a high ankle sprain. He was going to miss some time. They didn't really have much behind him at tight end. And honestly, Smith had not had such a great season himself. Mm-hmm. The Vikings, who look like they might be the second or third best team in the East, or in the NFC, make a big move to get Hockenson from the division rival. That was notable. What are your thoughts here on Hockenson to the Vikings?
Well, didn't these guys make the draft day trade for Jamison Williams too? Yeah. So, I mean, I think the Vikings GM and obviously the Lions GM don't have a problem trading in within the division. It's a guy that the Vikings know very well. They must be very high on. When I saw the deal, we were in the middle of Peacock and Williamson, and I thought, wow, that's an odd fit for the Vikes. If they were to get something, I thought they might get a receiver that runs a 4-3 or, Thielen's replacement. But more I thought about it, I mean, the Smith injury probably pushed this over, but any weapon to that offense, I think, is a compliment, is smart because they seem just a little short. He's going to a better football team. I think he gets a small spike. I mean, I wouldn't put him over Goddard or Freiermuth. I mean, he needs to show me more. He's been a little disappointing.
Yeah, I agree. A little bit of a down season for Hockenson, who felt like for a while he was that next top tier tight end from a dynasty standpoint, the young guy who could maybe make the leap, and he just hasn't made it yet. We'll see if this new team, this new situation helps him do that. Matt, let's move forward now with our topic for the day. It's Wednesday. We're talking player value. One thing we like to do on here when we do this is a dynasty value study. We really dig into the value of one specific player. Typically, it's a player who has seen their value change greatly in recent weeks, and that's definitely the case with Travis Etienne, the Jaguars running back. Started the season slowly. Of course, he missed his entire rookie season with that foot injury. So those first few weeks, I mean, he's the RB 36, RB 31, RB 28, RB 58 through the first 4 weeks. And, there were some dynasty managers ready to give up on this guy. Maybe he's not as good as we thought, and he can't even beat out James Robinson, who's also coming back from this injury. And then we saw all of that change pretty quickly over the past few weeks.
He looks phenomenal. I mean, the speed, the acceleration, I mean, I don't want to say he's Tyreek Hill, but sometimes you just see players that look different on the field than everybody else, and he's kind of in that mold. Obviously, his familiarity with Lawrence, I think that's an improving team. We talked about the Ridley addition. I mean, just, going forward, more first downs, more possession of the football, more touchdowns, helping people around him, I think is a good thing. We don't see Ridley till next year, of course. Maybe they add an offensive lineman in the offseason. I'm just saying the offense is trending the right way. That's what you want to see for a young back, receiver, runner, pretty much used in all situations, and he's explosive. Like, Dwayne McFarland talks about the archetype of what we want the running back position. Well, this is it.
This really is it. And I mentioned those first 4 weeks that were disappointing. Things started to turn in week 5. That's when Etienne began getting some more touches. 10 carries for 71 yards, also caught 3 balls for 43 yards. He was the running back 22 in week 5. That was his first time in that RB2 range. Week 6, 10 carries, 86 yards, couple catches. He was the RB 18. And then week 7 is really when dynasty managers and maybe the entire NFL kind of took notice of what Travis Etienne is and can do. 14 carries, 114 yards, scored his first touchdown of the season, caught 1 pass as well, and he was the RB8. And even more notable than that is following that week 7 game, unfortunately, we also had the Breece Hall injury in week 7, but following that week's games, the Jaguars trade James Robinson to the New York Jets, who needed some help after the injury. And that's really when Etienne's value took off, and he followed that up last week with the game in London. Huge game, 162 total yards and a touchdown, the RB7 on the week. And now the conversation moves from how high can we push this guy up in our rankings, in dynasty rankings. Certainly he's among the top 12 dynasty running backs. I think that goes without being said. Is he top 5? Is he top 3? I even saw a couple mentions of maybe this guy is the dynasty RB1. Taylor is disappointed. Javonte Williams is hurt. Breece Hall is hurt. How high are you going? And we'll talk about some other names when we get to our Twitter polls at the end of the show. But how high do you think you could go right now with Travis Etienne?
Well, it was just a week ago we did top 5 running backs, right? Sometimes I get my weeks mixed up.
I think that was, yeah.
Yeah. And I think whenever that was all said and done, he didn't make our top 5, but I was strongly considering him at 5 or 6. And I feel better about him now. I know it's only a week. That sounds petty, but in the world of running backs, things change very quickly.
Absolutely.
I mean, Etienne versus Swift is a really good conversation to me.
Well, I mean, if you think about some of the others, and again, we'll get to these names soon, but we have aggressively pushed up Breece Hall after a strong start to his season, obviously pre-injury. We have aggressively pushed up Kenneth Walker after 3 good games in a row and an injury to Rashad Penny. Shouldn't we do the same with Etienne? I mean, his spot feels even better than Kenneth Walker's. His talent feels, he feels like a better player, right?
Yeah.
Walker probably a better runner, but Etienne's going to catch the ball quite a bit more explosive, in my opinion. Yeah, maybe those 2 guys shouldn't be that far off. We are going to talk. We're going to talk dynasty rankings. We'll talk some recent trades involving Travis Etienne, and we'll get to those Twitter polls to create a dynasty rankings, a set of dynasty rankings, as we continue to talk Travis Etienne and his dynasty value.
This probably won't shock you when you hear it, but did you know over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries, package thefts, things like that nature, they spike nationally? Well, that's why our friends at Simply Safe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so that more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your Simply Safe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. I'm a big fan. We have pets. We have teenagers. I mentioned the teenager thing because you can see what they're up to if they have friends sneaking over when you're not around, or if we're out of town and we leave them here. I mentioned the pets. You feel much safer in case there's a fire or something along those lines. I mean, you don't want your valuables, obviously, in the house to be in jeopardy as well. So Simply Safe is big around the Williamson household. We are fans. It's a whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, windows and doors, HD security cameras for inside and out. They're like crystal clear. Smarter ways to detect motion that alert you when you have a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, other threats to your homes, like I mentioned. 24/7 professional monitoring costs less than $1 a day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With the top-ranked Simply Safe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere. Arm or disarm, unlock for guests, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. So here's what you got to do. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that we recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/URL today. That is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. It's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. That's our code here. Simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like Simply Safe.
Thanks for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Matt, let's continue this conversation about Travis Etienne. It sounds like we are both full steam ahead when it comes to Etienne, his talent, his value, and his situation in that Jags offense. We don't have recent ADP. It's the beginning of a new month here. We will have that very soon. And as we always do, we'll share that here. I am expecting Travis Etienne to be a first or a second rounder in that November Dynasty ADP.
Okay.
We'll see ultimately where he lands. Looking at DLF Dynasty rankings, he's currently the RB8. We've got Kenneth Walker at 6, Austin Eckler at 7, Etienne at 8. He is just ahead of Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon. Any argument with that? Sounds like maybe you would even want him to be higher.
Higher than lower. I mean, I don't think Mixon's close to him. I would much rather have Etienne than Chubb. I would probably have Etienne for Eckler. We kind of discussed Walker versus Etienne. I think that's a conversation.
Well, let's look at some of these trades because, that's always, in a lot of ways, that's the ultimate sign of a player's current value, right? Mm-hmm. What do I have to pay to get that player? And ADP is valuable and tells us a lot, but we're not doing startup drafts. At least most of us are not in November. We are making dynasty trades in November though. And we've got a bunch of them here. These are all from real dynasty leagues using the Trade Finder tool on dynastyleaguefootball.com. Travis Etienne and Pat Freiermuth for AJ Brown and Evan Ingram. I'd certainly rather have Freiermuth than Ingram, but the tight ends are not the central piece of this. We're talking Travis Etienne for AJ Brown here.
Yeah, but if that's the deal, I think the gap between Freiermuth and Ingram is massive. Like Freiermuth's probably my 6th tight end and Ingram's 15th or something. So
yeah, that's fair.
If this was Etienne, good.
I was just going to say, you're definitely winning that piece of it for sure.
Right. And for me, in this trade, I then want the Freiermuth side. But if you said Etienne for AJ Brown straight up, I would say that's 100% fair. Do you need a receiver or do you need a running back?
Okay, so he's that high up in your rankings because AJ Brown, we've talked about AJ Brown. He's the wide receiver 3 in Dynasty right now, basically locked in. He's ahead of everyone else. He's not quite to that Chase Jefferson range yet. So that's how you're valuing Travis Etienne. The next two here,
in a vacuum, I would take Brown, but if I needed a back or, versus needing a receiver, I could see that swap being pretty close.
Okay. Next two are a little surprising to me, honestly. Travis Etienne for for Breece Hall, and there were actually a couple different examples of that. So that trade has happened in multiple leagues, 1-for-1, no draft picks, no other pieces. Etienne for Breece Hall. Obviously, Breece Hall out for the year. We're not going to see him. He's not scoring any points for you. I love Breece Hall. I moved him up to my Dynasty RB1, as I said earlier, pretty aggressively after his start to the season. But I think I want Etienne here, and I'm not sure it's that close. He's giving you the rest of the season, and he already looks like a top 5 Dynasty running back himself.
Yeah, and you mentioned there's another one just like it. I mean, the other one is Etienne for Javonte, a 3rd and a 4th. Well, I mean, unfortunately, folks who listen to the show, we vaulted Javonte Williams up the board, and then he gets hurt. Then we vaulted Breece Hall up the board, then he got hurt. Like, I hope that doesn't happen to you, Travis. If so, I apologize in advance. I would rather have him than either one of those, and a 3rd and 4th isn't close to enough to make the gap. That doesn't mean anything.
I totally agree. I want Etienne over Hall, Etienne over Javonte, pretty easily. Honestly, not even a conversation. Yeah. Here's another one. Travis Etienne and Geno Smith. This was a super flex league, so Smith has a little value at least. For George Pickens, Drake London, and Josh Palmer. You're getting 3 young wide receivers, 2 of them being highly valued guys in Pickens and London, along with Josh Palmer for Travis Etienne.
I see both sides.
Yeah, I do too. I think I'm going wide receivers there.
Okay. I guess it comes down to, and this isn't really an ATN situation, do you think Geno's a starter next year? I tend to think he is, so I think I went that side.
It's starting to look like Geno Smith and maybe even Jacoby Brissett could be starters in the league next year.
Good point, yeah.
Both of those guys playing well, and so many quarterbacks not playing well.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne and CD Lamb, a couple of elite pieces, borderline elite, at least, for one of the most elite players in the league, Justin Jefferson. You also get the rookie tight end Daniel Bellinger in that deal. So it's Etienne plus CD Lamb for Jefferson and Bellinger.
Lamb.
Yeah, Lamb, Etienne there for me as well. That one's close. The rest of these, I guess I'm surprised, or at least the next couple, I'm surprised that the value is still this low for Travis Etienne. Etienne for Hollywood Brown in a 2nd. That's an easy one.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Yeah. So
Etienne for Darren Waller in a 1st. As we always say when talking about these trades, we don't know where these picks are. If that pick looks like the slam dunk 101 and you're getting Bijan Robinson, then that would probably change my opinion.
Sure.
But if we're talking random 1st, middle of the round, whatever, I want the Etienne side.
I mean, I'd rather Robinson than Etienne.
Travis Etienne for Justin Fields in a super flex league. Who do you want there?
That's tough for me. Fields has really come on strong, and I'm now confident that he will at least be next year's starter. Now he has Claypool. Maybe you throw a 1st-round pick in the mix. I think I want the quarterback.
I want the quarterback as well. And the last one, Javonte Williams. We talked about a Javonte and Javonte for Etienne deal. We didn't like that. What if it's Javonte Williams and Kyle Pitts for Travis Etienne? Is that enough?
Yes.
That's enough for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been a laughable deal a couple months ago, or a month ago,
right? For sure. So that's where Travis Etienne's trade value is. Honestly, all over the board. I'm most surprised at some of those deals that were very cheap. Hollywood in a 2nd, Waller in a 1st. If you can pay that for Travis Etienne, you should be doing it very quickly. Yeah. When we come back, we'll finish the Travis Etienne conversation. We'll get to those Twitter polls and create a set of rankings from them.
Everyone, I've told you a lot about Prize Picks. They've been really good to me. I've made some bucks with their service. I love it. And what I like about it most is it's not me versus a bunch of random folks that might get lucky. It's just me against a number, over, under, whatever. And I'm constantly on there, and I've done quite well. And what you do is you pick between 2 and 5 players, and their Prize Pick projection pops up, and you say, I'm going to go over, I'm going to go under, I'm going to go over, I'm going to go under. and you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. So again, I don't like competing against the other people. It's just you versus projections. It's not, boy, I hit everything right, but this other someone I don't know and far away would happen to get lucky and get better. And they have every sport you can imagine. I mean, some of the crazy ones like disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket. I always thought if you were great at one of those, you probably have a massive advantage over the numbers they give you. Of course, they have NFL, NBA, basketball, college basketball, everything, all that good stuff. You entries take 60 seconds at most. I mean, it's that easy. Really safe, fast withdrawals. They're operational right now in 30 different states as well as Canada. So download the PrizePick apps or go to prizepicks.com and sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive an 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with our promo code Locked On. They're going to give you $100 if we put $100 in. I mean, it's that simple. So if you deposit 100, PrizePicks gives you 100. If you deposit 50, PrizePicks gives you 50. Don't forget to enter our promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100.
All right, Matt, we're talking Travis Etienne and his dynasty value. Let's get to these Twitter polls. As always, I put our focus player, Travis Etienne, against a variety of other players in one-on-one polls. We use the results of those polls to create a set of dynasty rankings. I included some wide receivers here as well, Matt.
That's interesting.
So we've got some receivers and running backs. We'll go through some of these pretty quickly because I think these were obvious choices. Jamar Chase gets 95% of the votes. Justin Jefferson gets 93%. I don't think anybody is arguing Travis Etienne is a top 2 or 3 dynasty pick yet, so no surprise there. AJ Brown, 75%. That's also not a surprise.
Yeah, we talked about him earlier too.
This is kind of where it gets interesting. Jalen Waddle gets 63% of the votes, a young wide receiver. So I'm not surprised that Waddle was chosen ahead of Etienne. I am a little surprised at the gap in the vote, and I'm surprised at some of the players that Waddle ended up being ranked ahead of in this very unscientific process here. Because the next guy on the list is Jonathan Taylor, 59%. So Taylor gets 59% of the vote. Etienne gets 41% of the vote, and Waddle is a bigger favorite. Would you rather have Jalen Waddle or Jonathan Taylor right now?
No, I think Waddle's too high here. I adore the player. I think he's wonderful. I just think that despite, wide receivers being safe, you can just find them. You know what I mean? Like, Waddle's wonderful, but I would rather have Etienne than Waddle, and I would definitely rather have Taylor than Waddle. And I think that I'm sure the Naheem Hines trade didn't get factored in on Taylor, but I think I'd rather have Etienne than Waddle.
Okay, we disagree on that one. I'm taking Waddle. I was surprised that he was chosen ahead of Taylor, but I'm taking him over Etienne. I'm certainly taking him in the first round. He's the 4th wide receiver listed here. He would be my 4th wide receiver over CD Lamb and many others. But let's go forward here. Waddle at 63%, Taylor 59%. Another interesting one. We both agreed that we want Travis Etienne ahead of Breece Hall. The community did not agree with that. They've got Hall at 57% of the vote ahead of Travis Etienne. Again, it just comes down to getting points right now. And I mean, we can talk about, what if my team is not competing and I'm looking ahead to 2023 and beyond? Well, Travis Etienne is no slouch from a long-term standpoint either. I don't know. I was just surprised to see Hall ahead of Etienne. I know it's a pretty narrow margin, but still didn't expect that.
No.
A couple other players finished ahead of Travis Etienne in those head-to-head polls, both slightly surprising, I guess. Saquon Barkley, 56%. Christian McCaffrey, 53%. Both players have bounced back in a major way in 2022, having big seasons. So maybe it's not a surprise. Maybe we're just getting too overboard on Travis Etienne, Matt. You want Etienne over Barkley and McCaffrey?
I mean, 1 week ago, we had Barkley and McCaffrey in our top 5, and we didn't have Etienne. and McCaffrey was a Panther at that point. I think he goes up, and Barkley, even if Etienne is spiking, I don't think he's over those two, but I definitely think he's over Hall.
Okay. I said earlier that Kenneth Walker was ahead of Travis Etienne in the dynasty rankings from DLF Dynasty. He wasn't over Etienne here because Travis Etienne gets 57% of the vote. Kenneth Walker gets 43%. The community, at least the ones responding to these series of polls, prefer Travis Etienne to Kenneth Walker. I think I do as well. I think maybe I need to change my rankings. What do you think?
Yeah, we kind of glanced around that earlier in the podcast, and I was kind of torn. I mean, I almost didn't want to go down that road. And I'll be honest, I mean, Walker, Swift, and Etienne are really hard for me to rank.
Well, Walker and Etienne are hard for me to rank. I've got Swift further down. I think I've got him at RB 6 or 7. Okay. And Etienne ahead of him, Walker ahead of him. I mean, both of those guys are 23 years old, Walker and Etienne. Both are essentially in their rookie season. We talked about that injury to Etienne earlier.
Sure.
Both are on, I don't know, I guess you could call them bad teams, although the Seahawks, that's probably not fair. In fact, that's not fair at all to the way they've been playing this year, but they were at least expected to be bad. Can we count on this on Seattle to continue to be a good run offense and a good spot for running back production for Kenneth Walker?
I think so. I mean, I think he's a special player, and I'm kind of convinced that Geno at least doesn't stink and is playing pretty good. And, the line's coming around, and we know the head coach wants to run the football.
Last couple of guys who were chosen behind, or I guess were not chosen ahead of Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne beats these two guys. CeeDee Lamb, 42%, and DeAndre Swift, 35%. Didn't even include Javonte Williams on there. I think he would have been further down the list as well. It sounds like we had a lot of disagreement on this poll, Matt, or on this set of rankings.
A little. I mean, I think Waddle's getting too much love. I think Hall's getting too much love. Etienne should probably be right next to Walker. I think we agree on that. I might be a little higher on Swift than you, but I do think he's third behind Etienne and Walker. So a little.
So if you are doing a dynasty startup right now, let's say you've got the 11 or 12 pick, are you using that pick on Travis Etienne?
Probably.
Yeah, I think I would as well.
Yeah, probably.
All right, that will do it for today's show. Thanks for listening. Please make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the Locked On Dynasty channel on YouTube. Remember to follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Dynasty. Follow Matt at Williamson NFL. And I'm Ryan MC23. We'll be back next time with more Locked On Dynasty.